Hi guys, this is my Raintree nursery food forest, and I have a Chinese haw, I have 2 elderberries, I have 2 apricots, and then the 2 Asian pears and the walnut. The results speak for themselves. They're massive, they're huge, they're so happy. And I need to cut them back this year. Otherwise they're going to be massive trees, harder to harvest. I have them really close together, but a lot of the underbrush that you're seeing here is actually not fruit trees. It is willows that have come up because I planted these where I'd had a willow fence. And I also have some herbs in here that are self-seeding, that self-seeded here, and so it's truly a permaculture space. I have the undergrowth of herbs and smaller fruits, and then I have the overstory of the big fruit trees. I think that's a little better. All right, so this is my Asian pear. And what happened was after I planted it, and it was coming up and doing really well, I had one of the kids run over the top of it and snapped the main branch pretty badly so that it was hanging a little bit. So what I did is I cut it off at 18 inches. I left a node so that more leaves could come out, and I did make sure there were leaves on that node so that I wasn't cutting off its way to feed itself. I put the water repellent pruning tar on so that it wasn't evaporating, and in 1 year it's put on 6 feet of growth. This one is 2 feet taller than I am. So, the person I learned this from was David the Good. Alright, again, sorry about the lighting. There's not much I can do when I'm in an orchard. So this is my other Asian pear. It is not a different size than the other one as far as it's a semi-dwarf. But you can see this one doesn't even come up to my armpit. See that? Right there? It's like down here a little bit. Here's my armpit. So this one I did not cut back at all. This one did not get run over, so I didn't trim it back. It's the same size it was at the beginning of spring. Now, is it healthy and beautiful and bushing out? Yes, it is. But it's nothing compared to the one that I cut back. All right, I'm gonna try and keep my face in the sunlight. That right there, can you see that? That is a branch without any leaves on it. That's a dead branch. I need to cut that all the way back and then seal it, and I need to bring the whole tree down to about this level so that it will come on more aggressively and actually put on fruit next year. Next year it'll have been on the property for its 3rd growing season. It will be starting its 3rd growing season next spring. If I cut it back, it'll put on good branches that'll start to produce fruit instead of all this twiggy stuff. So the reason I let the undergrowth get so big is because motherwort will feed bees forever. It just keeps its little blossoms on for so long. Hold still, little bee. There's bees all over this, and it's the only thing that is still blossoming. I have an apricot in the front that I didn't trim back, and half of it is dead and half of it turned into like a plum because it came up from the root. And there's like 2 branches on there that are apricot branches. I really need to go and cut that one back really badly. I'm going to start with this one while I'm thinking about it, and I'm going to show you that I'm going to cut back dead ones all the way back, live ones about halfway back. I'll save these branches to go to the goats to eat. The dead ones are the hardest ones to cut, and they're the ones that need to come down the most. A lot of times what will happen is your top will get away from your bottom, your roots won't be as strong as your top, and then the tree really doesn't do anything. I've had the best harvests off of my fruit trees that I have cut back severely, almost like I was getting ready to kill it the year before. After the goats have eaten all the leaves off, I then take the branches, so this one won't be any good for the goats, but I take the branches, we put them through a chipper, and we use them as smoking chips for when we do pigs. All right, this is a pruning sealer. It does have chemicals in it that you do not want in your children's hands or mouths or anything. Don't eat it, don't get it on your hands. I really like this one in particular because it has that little wand. The first one I bought was called Tree Guard and it did not have the little wand. I'll see if I can find this on Amazon and put it in the link for you. That is the pear tree that I cut way back and kept pruned every year. And it's full of pears. We've already harvested everything that we wanted. And my most successful tree is the one that I pruned the hardest from the beginning. And here's a little treat of apricot leaves. It feeds my family with apricots, but it also feeds the animals. And then after they're done eating the leaves, we take the sticks and we put them into the pile for mulching so that we can use them as wood chips in the smokehouse. This is my pile of fruit branches that as we need to prune and feed it to the goats, they'll eat a little bit of the bark, they'll eat the leaves, and then we have this left over. I have a separate pile for non-fruit branches and we mulch those and turn them into actually mulch, but we chip these up to use after we dry them to use in the smoker. So it has a full life cycle. So this is the end result of all this planting, is that in the end we also use the wood to heat ourselves or to have Dutch oven cookouts, or sometimes I put this in the hugelkultur. If I need fill, I will take some rotten wood that's not good for burning and use that as the bulk of what I fill a hugelkultur with, the hotbed greenhouses. So it creates heat by either being burned or being decomposed in a garden. So I highly recommend planting an orchard. Plant a fruit orchard. It has so many uses for you. The cost is pretty minimal and the rewards are huge. I love Raintree Nursery. I started using them when we lived in Idaho Falls before we were on the homestead, and they had plants that could make it in my climate, which is cold and dry. And so I've had really good results with them. The one thing that I haven't been able to get from them to survive is bare root, peaches, and cherries. And so I'm going to explain something to you now on how to make them survive. See it? Can you see it? This right here? All right, if you can see that, that's a cherry. That's the first cherry we've had survive on our property. I've planted cherries from all sorts of companies. I've never done a potted cherry because of our season, our long winter, and our late frosts in the spring and our early frosts in the fall. It's hard for me to get cherries or peaches to make it. Now this big tree here is my peach tree. This peach here was a potted peach. It had leafed out when I planted it. This here was a potted cherry when it came to me. However, it didn't start out as a potted cherry. I'm going to tell you a secret that my mother-in-law taught me. So what she did is she got bare root cherries and peaches and cut the roots back, put it in a 5-gallon bucket, and then put sawdust and potting soil in it, and she kept it in her kitchen. She kept it in her kitchen, and on nice days she'd put it out on her porch. And then when it was nighttime, she'd bring them in, and she had, I think, 4 trees that she did this with all spring. All spring. Because most of the time when you get bare root trees, you get them in like March and April. We don't have safe weather for those kind of trees until May. And by then, the nurseries have to have already planted or potted those trees up. So if you want to save yourself some money, get bare root trees, but pot them in your house. Don't put them in a really hot space. Put them in a cool space where they can get some natural light, but it doesn't need to be super bright light. Just keep them alive until your last frost date is gone, and then they'll survive. And this one is thriving, is doing great. So good job, Sherry. My mother-in-law, again, is the one. She had to plant it here because they were moving, and she wasn't going to be able to get it in the ground in time. So super happy with the results on this one, and it's what I will probably be doing this next spring myself, is ordering bare roots, cutting the roots back so that they'll fit in a 5-gallon bucket, and then putting in potting soil and sawdust and rocks for drainage, and I will be doing that probably in March. You don't want the trees to be in your house for too long. They will get stagnant and unhappy in a bucket if they're in there for too long inside. So you really don't want to put bare roots into a pot and then keep it in your house for more than a couple months.